Welcome into the fourth day of our Locked On's Top 50 Most Valuable NBA Players list. This is not your normal MVP conversation. We made this list in conjunction with our partners at BetOnline, ranking players based on how much they influence a game's betting line. So, how much does your favorite player really affect the spread? We have the top 50 in the NBA for you over the course of this week. We're already at the top 20. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts so you can keep track of everything. We've broken it all down with our Locked On hosts who cover these teams every single day. What hasn't already been said about number 20 player on our Bet Online list? He has been one of the biggest talking points both on and off the court in the NBA for a long time, and now returns to try and run it back with Brooklyn Nets after it looked like he was trying to leave town at all costs. Coming off a career high in points per game, but doing it in just 29 games last season, is Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie Irving should be much higher on the BetOnline top 50 players list and should be in the top 15 at least. I'm Doug Norrie from the Locked On Nets podcast, and Kyrie Irving is clearly underrated on this list. We all know how polarizing a player Kyrie Irving can be, and sometimes those other narratives cloud what the guy actually does on the court. It was a tumultuous season last time out, to say the least, but when it was all said and done, Kyrie played. The Nets had a 121 offensive rating and a 5.28 net rating with him on the court. He's an absolute superstar. He averaged 27 points a game in his 29 games and came awfully close to another 50, 40, 90 season. Don't let the off-court stuff get in the way when it comes to Kyrie Irving and how he can move the line when he's on the court. He's among the very best players that the NBA has to offer.
The next player on our list has re-upped his commitment to the city of Philadelphia, signing a team-friendly deal with the Sixers to allow some cap space to add to that roster, potentially make a postseason run at a championship. And after an underwhelming year in Brooklyn and Philly last season, Sixers fans are hopeful to see James Harden turn back the clock this year.
James Harden should be the 19th best player in the BetOnline top 50 NBA players, even over Kyrie Irving. I'm Keith Pompey from Locked On 76ers podcast, and James Harden is clearly the 19th best player on this list. Some can argue that he deserves to be high, but then there's others who point out that James Harden was more of a facilitator last year. This year, he worked on his game. He's going to come back better than ever. Not better than ever. I'm not going to call him the Houston Rockets Harden, but for what the 76ers need, he's going to be the facilitator, but he's also going to be able to close out games. That's why he is the 19th best player on this list.
A new team and a fresh start for number 18 on our BetOnline list. He's an all-star and one of the most explosive scorers in the league. He's pairing up with some young talent in the backcourt in Darius Garland in Cleveland, bound to cause some problems for opponents as well. At number 18, we have the Cavaliers' Donovan Mitchell.
New Cavs guard Donovan Mitchell coming in at 18 seems a bit low, all things considered. I mean, let's be frank, he's a much better player than Paul George. I'm Evan Dammerel from the Locked On Cavs podcast, and Donovan Mitchell might be a new face in Cleveland, but he's still being undervalued across the NBA no matter where he plays. I mean, sure, you can make the argument that he's not the best defensive player, but when it comes to value, odds makers and bettors are saying Donovan should be a bit higher because he moves the needle quite a bit when the lights are the brightest. I mean, let's just look at his history. Donovan Mitchell is a certified stud in the playoffs, and he could easily carry the Cavaliers into the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals if things break even for the Cavaliers. You can't say the same about Paul George because we all know playoff P doesn't really show up all that much, but Spida casts his web and he just snares opponents and he leads teams to victory. It's going to be exciting to see what he does with the Cavs, and I think odds makers are going to regret this ranking once the season gets rolling and we see how strong the Cavaliers are, and not just the Eastern Conference, but the NBA in general.
Coming up, some more familiar faces as we run through BetOnline's top 20. That's coming up next. Locked On's NBA Top 50 Most Valuable Player list is brought to you in conjunction with BetOnline, the number one spot for all of your online sports gambling needs. The NBA season is right around the corner, so if you have some futures bets you want to get in on or anything that you want to wager on, BetOnline is where you need to go. So head over to betonline.net. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Our next player has exceeded all expectations since coming into the league in 2018. Last season, he averaged just shy of a double-double with 28 points per game and 9.7 assists. The point guard will try his best to lead his team back to the playoffs and hopefully make another run to the Eastern Conference Finals like he did in 2021. And at number 17, we have Atlanta's Trae Young.
Trae Young should be a top 12 to 15 player in the NBA on BetOnline's top 50 list and should be higher than he is right now. I am Brad Rowland from the Locked On Hawks podcast, and Trae Young continues to be underrated on the heels of a disappointing season for the Hawks on the whole, but it was not disappointing for Trae Young. He got too much blame for last season. In fact, he led the entire NBA in total points and total assists, while also going just beyond his individual contributions by leading team success on offense. The Hawks were number 2 in the league in offensive rating, and they were even better when Trae Young was on the floor. The Hawks have now fixed their problems with him off the floor, but even if they hadn't, that's not on Trae Young. And while his defense is certainly a problem at the point guard spot, it does not drag you down as much as people might think that it does. So one of the top 5 offensive players in the league the last couple of seasons, Trae Young is still underrated at this stage, and I think the best is yet to come, especially now we can focus more on defense with DeJounte Murray on board.
It's going to be a pivotal year for the LA Clippers, who rely highly on Kawhi Leonard and our number 16 player. He only played 31 games last year because of injury, but when he does take the court, you can bet he's going to have an effect on the betting line. We're talking about Paul George.
BetOnline's top 50 list for the 2022-23 season has Paul George listed as 16th. So you're telling me there are 15 better players in the NBA than Paul George? Hi, I'm Darian Vaziri, host of Locked On Clippers, and I'm here to tell you why that's nonsense. Paul George just led his team in the 2021 playoffs to the conference finals for the first time in the history of the franchise, winning a huge Game 5 in one of the toughest places to play in Utah with a 30-plus point performance. He was unbelievable, and then in Game 6 led the charge for the Clippers to make history. And in this last season, in the 31 games he played, the Clippers were 18-13. In the 51 games he didn't, 24-27. There is no doubt the Clippers would have made the playoffs if Paul George was healthy the whole season or even for 10 more games, and he's one of the best players in the league. That ranking is ridiculous.
The Memphis Grizzlies were blazing through the Western Conference playoffs last year, thanks in large part to our number 15 player, but the injury bug ended his season just when he was hitting his stride. Now, the future is bright for one of the league's biggest young superstars, Ja Morant.
Ja Morant should be ranked higher on the BetOnline top 50 NBA players list. I'm Joe Mullinax from the Locked On Grizzlies podcast, and this is a clear travesty, a complete misreading of the current state of the NBA. We're talking about a second-team All-NBA player, most improved player this past season, leading scorer in the paint in the entire NBA as a 6'3" point guard, and players like Anthony Davis and Damian Lillard, who had underwhelming seasons to say the least, are ahead of him? Is this a list about reputation or production? We're talking about a guy who is the clear number 1 player on his team. Davis is not necessarily that. Other players like Devin Booker ranked ahead of Ja Morant, not necessarily that. Ja Morant is in a position to where he is the guy for the Memphis Grizzlies. They go as he goes. He is the most charismatic, high-flying, exciting player in the NBA, and his production backs up the legend that he's building. And he's number 15? Come on, man.
Coming up, you will find out the superstars that just missed out on the top 10. That's next. At 14, we have a pure scorer. He averaged nearly 27 points per game, helped lead the Phoenix Suns to the best regular season record last year by a long margin. The Suns gassed out in the playoffs, but they'll look to rebound this year, hopefully behind another all-star season from Devin Booker.
If winning in the postseason and playing defense matter in the NBA, which I think they do, Devin Booker has to be higher than number 14 in the BetOnline top 50 NBA players list. Brendan Clean here from Locked On Suns. Devin Booker has been available, efficient, productive, play both ends, and winning games for 2 straight calendar years. Now, the players above him on this list, Anthony Davis, Damian Lillard, Kawhi Leonard, have not done that. Jimmy Butler has not been as consistently available, consistently productive in the regular season, consistently efficient as Booker. Booker is a top 10 player in this league. His teammate Chris Paul is also ahead of him. I think Booker has proven that his importance to this team, his caliber of player, and his difficulty of what he's doing are all more important than what Chris Paul is doing as well. Booker is a top 10 player. He's proven it again and again for 2 years now, and he deserves to be higher.
Number 13 on our list is entering his 11th season in the NBA. He signed a massive contract extension. He got the bag for sure. He's expected to be back at full health after undergoing knee surgery last year. And with the capability of playing at an MVP level, our next line mover is Damian Lillard.
Damian Lillard still a borderline top 10 player? Sounds right to me. I'm Mike Richmond, host of Locked On Blazers, and Damian Lillard is right where he belongs at number 13 on this list. I think you might be able to quibble a little bit with Anthony Davis, but even then, Lillard still lands on the edge of the top 10, entering his 10th NBA season, and he's certainly one of the game's best, and without a doubt, one of the game's most impactful. Over the past 4 seasons, and only counting the games that Lillard has been available to play, the Blazers have been 3.5 points better than their opposition per 100 possessions when Damian Lillard is on the court. And when he sits, nearly 7 points worse than their opponent. Yeah, he's a needle mover. Y'all know what time it is.
The Lakers are going to put one last-ditch effort together with its current roster surrounding LeBron James, and its success almost solely rides on the number 12 player on our list. Often injured, immensely talented, big man Anthony Davis.
When it comes to players more influential in the big picture hopes of his team, it's hard to top Anthony Davis on BetOnline's top 50 NBA players. I'm Brian Kamenetsky from the Locked On Lakers podcast, and Anthony Davis is the key to the Lakers' fortunes this season. Whether he's the best player on the team isn't really the point. LeBron James is still the driver of that group. But when it comes to beating the odds for wins on a season, a playoff berth, or even a championship, Anthony Davis is everything for LA. The Lakers were 16-26 when he didn't play last season, and the season before when the Lakers were pretty competitive before the whole team got hurt. AD averaged 24 points and shot 52% in wins and only 17.7 points and 43.5% in losses. So if the Lakers are going to surprise people, it will be because Anthony Davis is more than just an all-star caliber player. He's a first-team all-NBA contender night in and night out, and that will swing games in LA's favor.
And we close things out just outside the top 10, entering the second year of a 4-year deal with his hometown team. He's looking to bounce back from a torn ACL and do some damage with teammate Paul George. Now that they are both healthy again, we'll see what they can do. Number 11 is Clippers forward Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard was ranked 11th in BetOnline's recently released top 50 NBA players list. Hi, I'm Darian Vaziri, host of Locked On Clippers, and I'm here to tell you why that's bogus. The last time Kawhi Leonard was healthy, and that's the only reason he has this ranking, the last time he was healthy was 2021, and in the 2021 playoffs against the Dallas Mavericks, he became the only player besides Shaquille O'Neal in NBA history to average over 30 points in a series on 60% or more shooting. And mind you, that's on mainly jumpers, mid-ranges, threes, everything. Much tougher than the shots that Shaq was taking at his size. Kawhi Leonard was averaging 30 points in the last postseason just a year ago, not 3 years ago, before he got injured. And this year, he will return to his best and show everyone why he's the best player in the league.
We are finally down to the top 10 on our list. You do not want to miss it. Tune in tomorrow to see who cracked the top 10 on Locked On's NBA Top 50 Most Valuable Players, according to BetOnline, where the game starts. Follow your favorite Locked On NBA show to get more analysis of our top 50 list and those players. I'm Kainani Stevens. This is Locked On, your team every day.